Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Hwayoung. If you have been waiting for this video, I do appreciate your patience. I have been preoccupied with another game lately, and I mean most of you probably are, but I won't be talking about what that game is. But if you have been waiting, thank you again. I know that I'm very late for this in terms of the upload, but let's get into this. I think with the announcement that Guilty Gear is coming back, with Guilty Gear Strive, with a new character coming, I don't know if she's worth even pulling for, but let's talk about her anyway. The concept art of her is really good. I think she reminds me of Chun-Li, not the Street Fighter 5 like really big thick legs with small head and weird proportion Chun-Li, but like the older Chun-Li, which is usually deemed as a beautiful woman. So if you're into that, of course, her concept design looks good. So she is a fire elemental warrior and she's a Libra, and if you're not familiar with the Libras, they have about like 1130 attack or something like that, which is relatively low to start, but you see on the screen there it says 1510, so don't be confused. That is based off her passive. Her passive gives her up to 50% attack, but what you're seeing on screen is the base, which is 35% attack, which we'll talk about. I made this mistake before when I did my initial thoughts video for Senya, because at the time Senya was the only knight to carrying her star sign. She was like a new knight with the star sign, so I thought like all of those knights had those attacks. Turns out that they calculate the base of the passive, assuming that you can't increase the attack with skill enhancement. They include that on this screen. Okay, so that's reflected there, so it's good to point out. I believe that if they ever showcase the Luna one again, Luna gets a 30% more crit rate, they would actually just show it on the screen there. So if you're familiar with that, how they do that, you won't be too surprised at the 1510. But just in case you're watching this and you're kind of new and just like, whoa, 1510 base attack, scaling off her passive, she's gonna have insane attack. I think she still has really good attack, but it's not as insane as you might think. So it is 35% on that, I think it's 1130 something base attack from Libras, so it ends up being 1510. As you notice, the imprint concentration is pretty decent as well. It's an 18% self-attack imprint concentration. So imprint concentration is usually added, like just tacked on after gear. So after your percent attacks, your flat attacks, your weapons, your gear, maybe you have attack set, whatnot, it's all at the end. So the 18% attack is based off, I believe it will be based off the base attack. So at least on screen, the 1510, it would be 18% of that, which is about 271. But if it's based off the fully molded version, which would be 50% of the attack, I do believe that the imprint concentration would take scale there. I'm not 100% sure about that. Okay, so I'm like 95% sure. If you're 100% sure about that, drop it in the comment down below. At least it'll be useful for other players trying to measure out how much attack they can get her. Okay, so the imprint concentration, does it stack before or after the passive? That's my question. But it is usually a percentage of the base attack on a regular hero, percentage of the base attack added on. So in this case again, it would be 270 for assuming the 35% passive becomes the base attack. Okay, the health is at 6226. Again, Libras are really tanky, very good. 627 defense, speed is 109, it's usable. 0 crit rate, which is no waste, and 0 crit damage, 0 effectiveness, 0 resist. So unfortunately, someone like ML Surmia had to have that 30% effect resistance there. I still don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if Smug did it on purpose, because otherwise she'd be pretty good like without it. Like with that into HP or something like that, I think maybe ML Surmia would be too strong, or stronger than what they want. Regardless, they did say that the recent balance patches, so like Solitaria, Dilibet, and even the newly released heroes, so Hwayoung, Bad Cat Armin, all those ones that are previewed right now, they did say that they are designing them in light of what we saw before on the dev direction notice. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, I did a video on that. It's the development balance adjustment direction. So it's like what the devs want to do in the future in order to maintain like a slower power creep, a less stale meta, etc, etc. And I think if you're looking at Hwayoung under that umbrella, Hwayoung kind of makes sense because she doesn't stand out. Doesn't mean she sucks, but in light of meta heroes, she does suck. So unfortunately it's a comparison contest. So like I said, stats are solid, so let's move on. Unfortunately, I would say one critique on her overall kit is that the defense is great. I think the health could be lower. It would probably be more beneficial if she got more defense out of it, but I'm not gonna complain. Either way, skill 2, Prairie Hawk. So caster cannot trigger critical hit, so like Asenia, Gunther, Summertime Assyria, but attack is increased by 35%. If you Mola this, that's another 15%, that's 50% attack. So that's what I was saying, that 50% attack on, let's assume the Libra Warrior base is 1130. 50% attack would give her about 1695, but I don't remember the exact numbers to a Libra and I'm too lazy to pull it up, so let's just say 1700 attack. 1700 attack plus the imprint, no matter what, you're almost looking at a 2k attack without gear. That's pretty nutty, right? But we're gonna get into it because unfortunately I don't think that she's still that strong. I'll talk about some damage scenarios. Damage suffered from critical hit is reduced by 30%, so that's like LQC. When more than one damage effect is granted, only the strongest is applied. Then 30 is pretty nifty, so generally you're not gonna get much stronger than that. Even with Proof of Valor is at 30%. At the start of the battle, at the end of the turn, grants a barrier to the caster for 1 turn, and the barrier strength proportional to the caster's attack. So it is skilled on the attack. I do have a damage calculator running here. Assuming that it is maxed, although the barrier is not influenced by the skill enhancement itself, but it is influenced by the attack. Assuming your Hwayoung is at a 6000 attack, so no attack buff, no vigor buff yet, but at the start of the turn she's gonna have about 2700 HP barrier, right? So if you're building her with like, you know, decent gear and you're not chasing HP, you're looking at maybe about like 10,000 to 12,000 HP. That's assuming like, you know, all your gear is pretty good and maybe you have a couple spare HP percent. But with barriers, as usual, you would probably want to scale on defense and consider that barrier every single turn that she gets would be strong. It's almost like a heal, increasing her HP. So really what you want is like really high defense. Scale that defense on this Libra Warrior, and I think she'll be pretty good. Outside of that, I think you'll be chasing speed. You'll be chasing very high attack, of course, for that barrier. So you wouldn't be chasing too much HP. My note on the HP being too high is not like for the barrier for survival, it's not bad. The unfortunate part is really about the S3. This is why I was mentioning that the HP should be lower, and you should try not chasing HP at all. Emperor's Flaming Strike, this is the S3. Dispel, after dispelling all debuffs from the caster, attacks the enemy with a secret technique, grant immunity to the caster for 2 turns, penetrate the target's defense. That means it's 100% defense pen. When the target's max health is greater than the caster's max health, damage dealt increases proportional difference of a maximum of 100%. So it reminds me a bit of like Strays, this skill, because it's 100% defense pen, but you don't need the attack to be higher than the opponent's attack to have the 100% defense pen, but because you can't crit, you definitely need some more damage. So it has like a bit of a Irvelin vibe, it has a bit of a Strays vibe in here in terms of the damage. The raw damage, as you can see there, is 10 10 5 5, which is 30% extra. It is a 4-turn cooldown with the -1 turn cooldown. It's 3 turns. If you soul burn, it grants an extra turn, so she can definitely do it in like within 2 turns. She can do this twice, so that's not terrible, but that's assuming you have 20 souls to grant that extra turn. Okay, so the skill itself, I think it's fine. She's going to have problems going through someone like FCC though, in my opinion, and on very bulky heroes. So I'll talk about the conclusion later. So this is part of the S3 animation. She like kind of goes down, like she flies up, goes down with like a downward kick, and then boom, and you see this. In this case, she has an attack buff. Okay, she has an attack buff, and then doing 19,000 and then 19,000 damage to the Sea Armin. So one thing before I go on to the S1, I just want to bring up like the damage calculator and talk about this a bit. So the S3 has a 0.55 attack rate or damage mod and a POW of 1. So I'm reading this. So caster versus target HP difference is 15% HP out of 1000. So is that wait. So assuming So it's probably like a 1.5% increased damage per 1 HP percent difference. Penetrate, of course, is 100%. So because she's a single target hero, one might think like, oh, get her on pen set, but you definitely don't need pen set, but you also don't need crit set. So it's like maybe defense set could be good for her, unless you want that first turn immunity. So that's just something to keep in mind. Maybe a defense set, maybe an immunity set. She can't crit, she can't really use a pen set because her S3 won't generate more pen from 100% to defense pen, so that's just something to keep in mind. So I do have a Hwayoung on the damage calculator set here because the S3 is a defense pen, so you don't have to worry about the target's defense, and it doesn't crit, so something like an anti-crit damage reduction wouldn't matter. Proof of Valor, just keep in mind that it would matter. You can actually mitigate damage with Proof of Valor since it doesn't require a critical hit check. But my Hwayoung on the damage calculator is 6,000 attack. Okay, so 6,000 attack is relatively easy, assuming you even have imprints. But I'm basing that off my Senya. My Senya is 6k attack with only a B imprint. It's not too hard to get attack on these characters. This is without an attack buff on my damage calculator, no vigor buff. The defense on the opponent doesn't matter, and I don't have any damage mitigation, no auras or anything like that. I just want to see the pure damage. So what I said is the caster's HP is about 9,000. The target's max HP is 25,000. Now there is a cutoff to this. If I have about 9,000 HP, the damage is roughly the same, up to about let's see here, about 16,000. Okay, so 16,000 and higher, your damage does not change anymore because it's maximum up to 100%, right? So it doesn't matter. So let's say the at the maximum damage I can do at 6k attack, again, no vigor buff, no attack buff, max skill enhance is 16,000 damage. 16,000 damage. That sounds pretty good, but not good enough for killing almost anything, at least on the screen. I don't know how that Searman died at 19,000. Of course, there's an attack buff there, but generally you're not killing anything like that. And unfortunately, she doesn't really work into, I would say at least, she doesn't really work into some kind of cleave comp either. In terms of against cleave comp, so against squishy targets, she probably doesn't have the oomph. So I'm not quite sure about this. So increased attack, if I gave her increased attack, the damage goes up to 21,000. So that looks about where the Searman is. Just keeping in mind defense pen, I'm just actually remodifying my damage just to see what kind of numbers that this stat was at. So I lowered my attack down to about 5,400, and with the increased attack from Amelia, as you can see there, that's the damage you're looking at. Alright, so assuming you had 6,000 attack, obviously the higher attack you have, the more damage you do, because it's still mainly on damage, not on the HP difference. Alright, it's still mainly on attack. That's where your damage is still coming from. Assuming you have vigor buff and attack buff at 6k attack, you're doing about 24,000 damage. That's somewhere more usable. But again, you have to make sure your HP is not high enough to affect that that damage. So you can't go too high of an HP. So she might have some survival issues from turn 1, who knows. But those are my thoughts on the S3. So S1 attacks the enemy with a kick and increases combat readiness of the caster by 10%. If you add to +4 there, it's 15% CR boost per time she kicks. When the caster is buffed, inflicts additional damage proportional to the caster's attack, regardless of whether or not the attack hits. Based on the video that they presented, it basically looks like an Uberi's tooth proc, specialty drink proc. You're familiar with that extra pop. So realistically, this might be enough to kill off like a Celine or something like that. I'm actually gonna do a damage test here, but do keep in mind that the S1 is not penetrating defense. All right, so ideally, if you want the S1 to hit hard, you want to put her on a pen set with the same stats, with attack without attack buff, 6k attack. Hold on, let me just add that to the, okay, 6k attack with pen set, and if they have like, let's say 1500 defense, you're doing about only 3,900 damage. Let me see, I think there is okay, so it says the aftermath or the extra attack is a 50% of that original attack. Okay, so if I did 3,900, oh, it's 50% of the attack rate. So let me think about that. So would that be a lot? So 6,000 attack would give me about 50%. So about 3,000 more damage on top of 3,900, and it has a 70% defense pen. So that's very similar to Iberia's Tooth. I'm curious if Iberia's Tooth stacked with that. But that's with pen set, okay? So the attack with pen set, if you have attack buff and vigor buff, you're looking at something higher, somewhere about like 6,000 attack. Like 6,000 damage rather, and then on with another like 3,000 extra damage. So I don't even know if that's actually enough to kill someone like ML Celine in one shot. I think you actually missed the kill, especially if she's protected by Aureus, or vigor buff. Or any kind of defense buff, something like that. So unfortunately, I think the S1 is not that strong. The damage rate attack rate is 0.6. The power is at 1. So unfortunately, it's slightly on the weaker side, and the damage is also another 30% raw damage if you plus 5. And then her artifact. So indestructible Gators. Is it Guiders? Whatever. Don't make fun of me. Increases the attack by 10%. If a non-critical hit is made when attacking with a single attack, 100% chance to burn for 1 turn, can only be activated once per turn. The unfortunate part about this is that the once per turn, and also it has an effectiveness or effect resistance check. So outside of, you know, like it's really like Iberia's Tooth again. I believe Burn has the same thing, has a 70% defense ignore. So it's technically like the S1 extra attack on a Iberia's Tooth extra attack. So the burn probably would do more actually, but you are going for a resistance check there. And I do think that there are better warrior artifacts for her. So unfortunately, I think that this artifact is not that good at all. I'm thinking 10% attack, is that good enough? I don't believe so. I don't believe that's good enough to say that, oh, you probably want to pull and try to get this artifact. I can't even think of one that would work unless you're using Gunther with it. But still, at the same time, it's like, why not just use something like Junkyard Dog, which has a 50% rate. It's free, and you can burn as many turns as possible. Like, so if she's on a counter set, for example. Well, I don't know. I feel that again, in light of Epic 7's like balancing and stuff like that, she is not good. But I can't say I complain about it. I don't believe every character has to be good anymore, because there's just too many characters to choose from. So I'm okay with her being the way she is. I think maybe like Senya, maybe an EE would really make her shine. I don't necessarily know if she needs to be buffed, but just comparing even Senya without an EE before Senya had an EE, I think that Senya just brings more to the table compared to her. Of course, she does more damage, but Senya just does more for the entire team. And Senya can deal with squishy targets, where I think she would have a harder position to deal with squishy targets or kind of be an anti-cleave hero. And then she's not strong enough to be like a nuking hero, like someone like a Luna or someone else that is just has better one-shot potential. I think she falls flat there. But that's just my opinion. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about Hwayoung? Will we be pulling for her, even though in light of Epic 7's Guilty Gear collab coming? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to end this for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.